change really attribute to me? That was the first thought that came to me when I was invited to this platform. Well, the word transcendence, that's my paternoster word. And is it because I'm not really satisfied with what is already on the deck? Or is it because I relate the word independence to the conventions? Maybe not. It's just because I'm too lazy to walk through the roads that's already been walked. Well, my story, I mean, the first scene of my story starts at a matriculation school, where you see a student who is very lazy, who's like really fails in all his exams. My father never really believed that I would pass my 10th grade. But to the surprise, I, just passed with marginal marks and did a graduation with a bag of, arrears. And finally, this lazy guy realized it is the lazy ones who are really lazy to pull the locks, and the lazy ones who are really lazy to walk invented the wheels and the bicycles. So the next scene would lead to, it's an immediate cut to a university where the same guy, who used to be very much of an introvert, changed to be a very active extrovert, and for him, 24 hours was not enough because he was a student, he was an assistant cinematographer, he was a college union general secretary, and he was into, he was a freelancing cinematographer as well. And the very bad student once received a call hearing that he secured first rank in the university level with a gold medal, right? So yeah, so that's where the transformation happens. But I'm immediately, as my films, my storytelling is also pretty non-linear. So I would go to a flashback where I was a child. So how does this, this filmmaker really started? The filmmaking thing really started. It's like it's not out of a blue moon. It just I wanted to be a filmmaker. So it's like we used to have a very old, traditional house with a tile roof firewood kitchen, and my granny used to make me sit on a table and feed me my breakfast. And it was like in the fine morning where you have this, one tile removed and replaced with a glass all smudged with smoke, and you see this fine streaks of, early morning light, sunlight coming in, and all you see is, the smoke. And I used to have hallucinations of, elephants, dragons, and all these forming in the smoke that is coming out of, this firewood kitchen. And with this beautiful texture of the earthen pots and everything, that creates a fantasy. And that is what made me realize I want to tell stories through the visuals. But how? Never knew which medium, how to tell it, because if I start to draw, it would always look like, a picture made of two left hands. If I don't know what to do. I'm not good at, any of the animation or anything. But one fine day, my brother was watching a movie in HBO. And that time the movie Illusionist was like, Valiyatan and to Kairali, right? I mean, Malayalis would understand what it is. And yeah, so watching that movie, the visuals of that movie, that made me feel like this is what I really want to do, to create visuals and tell stories, right? But that took me like, to the filmmaking scene. At the same time, I did my, education in cinema, but I witnessed a gap that, there is a great gap between the academia and the practice. Being a practitioner myself who also has interest in academics, I never knew how to bridge this gap. And that is when, my paternoster word came into significance. That's the word transcendence. And I decided to do a PhD in filmmaking, especially in transcendental cinema. But, I applied at 30 different universities. everywhere same reply came from, most of the universities telling your profile is looking really, your profile and your proposal is looking very exciting, but unfortunately we don't have any supervisor for your topic. And one fine day, I got a mail from somebody after 30 rejections, and so much of disappointments and depression. Finally, somebody told, this is straight away connected to my research interest, and you come over to the UK. And that's how my life took a turn, and that's when I started to realize, there is a possible way of doing research and practicing academia, along with, you're incorporating your filmmaking practices. And that's what I really do. And that also took me, to a level like, how do we really have to tell stories? Because how to find stories? That was a quite tricky, or rather the challenging part once you start this. How to find your stories, right? At the same time, I'll tell you a story, right? Because we actually believe filmmaking is rocket science. It's somebody, it's something that only few people can do. But I just want to demystify this concept, telling that it's about everyone can make a film. And how does this inception of finding the story really happens, And it's not just about the story, it's also about how you idealize your perfect narrative to your story. Because it was really like a challenging job when I was hired to make feel-good stories out of the post-earthquake Nepal. When the earthquake hit Nepal, I was just hired, and what I was asked to do was to make good stories out of Nepal. And when I boarded into my flight, I was like, what am I really going to do? But that project ended up in making 13 short documentaries and world's first post-disaster 360-degree documentary in 15 days. Right? So and it's all about how you tweak your narratives, and how do you discover, how do you open your eyes to witness what fits into your narrative, or how you develop a narrative that fits into the perfect story that you want to say, right? And coming back to this thing, how do you really make a film that is really unique to you, right? How do you make a film that is really personal? Because I think it's really essential for everybody to make a film, because the world needs to hear stories, right? And filmmaking is a great medium to, empathize, to make an empathy towards what you really want to say. But when you look at it, this is a methodology which was actually inspired from Paul Schrader. Paul Schrader, you might not realize the name, but you might know the film Taxi Driver, right? And Robert De Niro telling, you talking to me? You're talking to me? The dialogue is very famous, right? So, yeah, that's Paul Schrader wrote that film. So, we all might have one serious existential, at least one serious existential problem in our lives, right? And I'm not talking about a problem that where your wife might complain about, not attending a wedding of your uncles, sisters, brothers, sons, somebody, right? It's not that problem. I'm talking about a problem that is really deep-rooted to your existence. Personally, taking me, I'm a Malayali, born in Kanyakumari district. That itself is a little a tricky position, right? Being a Malayali in Tamil Nadu, that is like, I would say, as an adapted land, right? So that is seriously an existential problem of me. But when I was making my film, Tide of Lies, I'm not talking about making a film immediately about your problems. How do you metaphorize your problem? For me, this problem of my existence was transcribed to a metaphor of a brown lady being adopted by white parents. And the film was all about her complexes and how she's introspecting and identifying her own existence and, her own identity. So yeah, you have a problem, you metaphorize your problem, and you find an ideal character to play the metaphor, right? And once you have the character, you put in situations. What an all situation, what would be the ideal situations that the character can live through so as what your story can ideally be told. And once you have this, situations, that's it. It's a screenplay, right? A film is as simple as that. A filmmaking is never a rocket science. So this is a philosophy that I always believe in. It's the universe is universe is made up of atoms. Universe is made up of stories, not atoms. It might be like the science people around here might find it a little strange, but that is what I really believe. And the world has so much of unique stories to say, and we as we as Homo sapiens, we need to listen to stories. And please make stories, please tell stories, please make movies that bring really a great change. Thank you.